Alright, Cherubs, this is a portrait of Thomas Jefferson, but we're not talking about painting today. Jefferson wasn't that into it. He didn't like the idea of rich people with paintings ornamenting their houses. He claimed the nation was too young and too poor to do so. It would be useless, therefore, and preposterous for us to make ourselves connoisseurs in the arts. They are worth seeing, but not studying. His art form of choice was architecture, so that's what we're going to do today. Jefferson personally designed houses, courthouses, the Virginia State Capitol, and the University of Virginia. To understand how he influenced American architecture, let's look at how things worked before him. Think of the old major universities, like Oxford or Cambridge in England, or the American universities built before him, Harvard or Yale, for example. The architecture is monastic, like the gowns you wear at graduation. They're built around a chapel. Jefferson's University, though, that was built around a library, and a library built to look like it came from classical Rome, the Pantheon, to be more specific. Its proportions were halved from the original Pantheon, but the message is clear. In overthrowing the British monarch in American soil, these United States did not cast off civilization to become a wild backwoods. They were rebuilding civilization. They were connected directly to a classical past. Additionally, by placing a library around that dome, the light coming through the oculus would demonstrate the Enlightenment ideal of human knowledge flooding the space. This was an institution for learning, not built on the monastic ruins of medieval Europe, but on Enlightenment thought, like the nation would be. He also defined the aesthetic for state buildings with the Virginia State Capitol building. This was modeled after the Maison Carrée in southern France. This building came from Imperial Rome, not the Republic of Rome, but never mind that. Jefferson claimed that we wish to exhibit a grandeur of conception, a republican simplicity, that true elegance of proportion, which corresponds to the tempered freedom excluding frivolity, the food of little minds. The ornamentation of absolute monarchs was for little minds who needed sparkly things. This, however, was simple, beautiful. Additionally, it's not English, it's not colonial. It's searching for those first principles of simple republican virtue, and in searching, Jefferson designed the first temple-form state building in close to 1,500 years. One thing you'll notice about these structures is how they're designed using primary shapes, circles, rectangles, triangles, and by using simple but strong and beautiful design, Jefferson was commenting on architecture derived from first principles, like the nation would be. As the first U.S. Secretary of State, he also oversaw the hiring of architects for the Capitol, and he clearly guided it towards that same aesthetic. If the U.S. was going to revive and remold classical forms of architecture to forge its own identity built on those foundations, it would have to happen in its federal buildings. If you want to see this clearly, look closely at the columns in the vestibule designed by an architect hired by Jefferson named Benjamin Henry Latrobe. You'll notice some corn cobs on the capitals instead of the traditional acanthus leaves. Or in the old Senate wing, tobacco leaves are on the capitals. These are two distinctly American crops incorporated into the classical column. Now, it's become commonplace for us to think about government buildings that look like Roman temples, so much so that we may not even realize that that aesthetic needed to be chosen and constructed. Jefferson did that. It was a conscious decision made during the birth of the Republic that has now defined our visual vocabulary. In the next video, I'm going to be discussing how landscape painters look to nature in order to find a national identity and debate the usefulness of civilization altogether. I hope you've been liking the series on American art. Thanks for watching. And if you like this video, you should subscribe, and if you really like this video, you should check out my Patreon page. There's a link in the description below. Thanks again.